This is Felt Recoil.
All right, welcome to the Felt Recoil podcast. Thanks for downloading each and every week, and thanks for spreading the good word, if you so choose to do. Saw a big uptick in the downloads last week. This is episode number 26. My name is Chris. Across from me, my good friend
Patrick.
Hey, sorry I talked over you.
You did.
What was your name again?
Still Patrick.
Oh, okay, all right. Good to be back for number 26. Do you understand what 26 is, Hulon?
Yes, I think I do.
What?
I think it's half a year.
Hey, that's exactly right. Right at half of 52. That means this is a 6-month mark. What did you get me?
I showed up.
It's our anniversary. It's funny.
I brought beer last week. That's got to count for something.
That counts. Great reaction on your part, because it's exactly what I do to my wife on our anniversary every year.
Nice.
What'd you get me? I say, I'm here. We have 3 kids. I'm stuck around. What more do you want? I kid.
I don't know.
I hope she doesn't listen. My wife did tell me this week that she can always tell when we're talking about girls on the podcast, because apparently I talk quieter. So I intend to yell the whole way through this week's. So here we are. Before we get too deep into it, let me tell you about this week's charity of choice. This is very close to home for us. They're located here in the upstate of South Carolina. It's a company called Generations Group, and you can find out more about them at generationsgroup.com. But here's what you need to know. Generations' mission is to prevent sexual abuse by helping neglected and or at-risk adolescent and pre-adolescent boys overcome abusive behaviors. The goal is to give the boys a home-like setting that'll be structured and staff secured. It's also a therapeutic environment that promotes and rewards positive change, and they treat every person with care and respect and as an individual. So they help the residents see that they can actually transform their life and then return to the community as a positive, productive, and responsible person. What's important to note about that is part of this abuse cycle is the victim blaming themselves. And that's absurd on its face to all of us, but psychologically, they can be tortured by their tormentors even after the abuse has ended, because it sticks with them and they start to blame themselves. That's just one small facet of it all. But Generations Group is there to help fix that as best they can. Visit generationsgroup.com. and you can read up on the services they provide, including the group homes that give necessary services for these boys, proper education, recreational experiences, family reunification, spiritual direction, and a whole lot more. Learn about them, and please consider donating to the Generations Group at generationsgroup.com. All right, it's a busy week. We got a lot to get to. We're going to talk Trump, Hillary, Russia. We're going to talk about Tennessee basically becoming a sanctuary state now for suppressors. That's kind of cool to think about. And then we're going to talk a little bit about a rape case that the charges got dropped, and I'm going to tell you why it matters that nobody's really talking about it anymore. All right. First and foremost, though, today the Mossberg Shockwave arrived that I ordered. And Patty, you and I took it out and did a little shooting. Initial impressions.
I didn't think I was going to like it, but it was actually pretty fun.
I knew I was going to like it. That's why I bought it the day I saw it. But
Fair enough.
Ordered it straight from Mossberg. They're kind of hard to get on the store shelves, if I understand correctly. Took me just about a month to get mine by saying, hey, Mossberg, can you send one to my gun store? And they did. So that was cool. If you've seen on the YouTube channel, we sat and talked with Mossberg about why the Shockwave is not a shotgun. It's a pistol grip firearm, if I'm not mistaken. It's an other in South Carolina when you do your paperwork, which is interesting because that's a federal form. And when we talked to him, he talked about some places would mark it as an actual like pistol grip firearm, but here we don't. When I sell them to people, it's an other. There's 2 spots on the form. Either way, it doesn't matter. Loaded it up with some 12 gauge, went out on the range, and man, I loved it. And I think it might be completely ego. Like, it might just be like a macho man type gun to shoot because, yes, there's some home defense applications to it. I think that's great.
Arguable.
Arguable. I'm never going to use it for that reason. It might simply be a novelty item. For me, it definitely is. But there's just a thing about the fact that, you grab the pump. Remember, this thing's got a 14-inch barrel. Okay, and we're shooting 12 gauge out of it, and so the grip angle on it isn't like a pistol grip. You're not holding it like a pistol. It allows your wrist to stay parallel to your waistline, if you will.
Right.
And so your wrist is straight. There's no cocking to the wrist, and you just hold tight and let it fly, man. That was just a really, really good time. We tore up some paper.
2 things.
Yes.
1, all the bad guys got to hear is that sound. Okay. 2, it's a shotgun, so you don't really need to aim it.
What,
So
Patrick?
it's perfect. It meets both of those things. You're not going to aim it, and you're just going to make some noise when you rack the slide. Mm-hmm. It's perfect.
So if you don't know, Patrick is playing the typical I use a shotgun to defend my home guy. And both of those things are bad advice. Very, very bad advice. Can you imagine thinking, like, it's as bad as Joe Biden's advice on just put the shotgun out of the house and fire 2 blasts, fire 2 blasts outside the house by shotgun. Anyway, it's about equal. It's on par, I think, because not aiming is a terrible idea regardless of the firearm. And B, identifying your location when there's a bad guy in the house is almost equally bad. But anyway, so I loved it. Highly recommended. It's not going to cost you a lot of money. You can find it for less than $400 at most places. So if you're into that kind of thing, highly recommended.
But not bad to shoot overall.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, I just put it out there, bought a box of shells, and said anybody on the crew that wants to come out and shoot the Shockwave, if you want to check it out, come check it out. 4 or 5 of us went out there, and it's definitely one of those things that everybody shoots and then smiles, like you leave feeling happy, like, I don't know why I just did that.
It was one of those things where I threw one in, and I was like, well, I'm going to shoot one just so I can say I shot it. Mm-hmm. And then I did that, and then I wanted to shoot the rest of the box.
Right, yeah.
Because it actually was really fun.
Yeah.
Because you're just kind of literally shooting it from the hip. Mm-hmm. So the first 2 shots I took with it were not very well placed.
Yeah.
Because it is hard to aim.
So maybe that's part of it, too, is there's a challenge there. Like, you shoot it, and you're like, yeah, well, I'm going to blow this piece of paper up. And you're like, hey, I didn't go where I thought I was going to go. Let me try that again. And then there's...
Yeah, it took me a couple tries, but I figured it out.
I loved it. I'd spend all day. And, again, I mean, everybody talks about ammo costs. $6 for 25 rounds out of a shotgun. It's a pretty good time. I will say my forearm hurts a little bit. Like, I feel a little sore because I ended up putting most of the box through it. And I was like, man, I guess I was way too tense out there. So, all right. We did get some breaking news. Do you have the article pulled up about Mueller is now going to be the special prosecutor that investigates? Here's what's funny. So, we're going to talk a good deal here about Trump, Russia, and the ties that bind. I'm not 100% dialed in on what the hubbub here is. And by that, I mean, I get what people are saying, but let's just assume that everything you're hearing in the media is true. And if you're not aware, here's what they're saying. Supposedly, there was a meeting with Trump and some top Russian officials, and Trump basically said to the Russians, hey, listen, we got some really good intelligence. In fact, we're aware of a plot where ISIS is going to use laptops to take down an airliner. Something to that extent, okay? And now everyone is furious because
Classified information, sir.
Supposedly it was classified information.
Sir, it's classified.
Let's ignore how comical it is that suddenly everyone's worried about how classified information gets handled. We're going to come back to that.
Bizarre double standard.
Let's ignore that for the moment.
If you have an entire server in your bathroom,
totally fine,
full of it, that is open for just about anybody with above average knowledge of how to get into computers, that's cool.
What kind of account are you using to send those emails to the server? Is it like a State Department email or maybe like just from your BlackBerry?
No, it's just mine.
Just your personal account?
Yeah, well, I actually have my own personal account on the same server where I'm storing the documents.
I see. Okay.
Because I feel like if it's all in one place,
fine.
that's better, right? It's smarter.
Is the is the server guarded by the Secret Service?
No.
So there's not actual Secret Service guys out walking the perimeter of wherever
it's really
located?
heavy. Okay, it's big, right?
So nobody's gonna take
It takes up most of that half bath.
Nobody can take it.
So nobody's gonna like pick that up and run out with it. So you don't really need guys there, like with guns or anything, to guard it.
Okay. So far, I'm okay with your plan. Here's really the $1 million question. So you're using your BlackBerry,
Love it. Love my BlackBerry.
personal email account, and you're taking classified information and sending it to yourself on that server? Right? Basically,
Well, yeah.
I'm right here. Okay,
That's
okay.
what everybody does, right?
Are you at this time intending? You're committing some serious federal crimes here.
Allegedly, sir.
Lots
Allegedly.
well, you just admitted to them. Lots of felonies being committed, but it's okay because here's a question here you need to answer. And just so you know, before I really dig deep, I'll probably have just a friendly conversation with your mom, okay? And just, hey, how's it going on maybe an airplane on a tarmac, just to see how she feels about what I should do, okay?
For the record, she doesn't play golf, so just go ahead and get that out of the way.
If you were married, maybe I'd talk to your wife, okay? But for now, probably your mom,
Okay.
you know, and so she's significant to you. I'll talk to her first, but I do need to know the answer to this. In all of these felonies you're committing, at any time,
Allegedly.
Mr. Hulon, did you intend to break the law? Let me repeat it. Did you intend to break the law? Remember, purposefully here, I'm not using the word is because I don't want to have to define it. I want to be real specific here. Did you at any point intend to break the law?
No, sir, I did not.
You're fine. Not a big deal. Water under the bridge. Okay? Now, let's just suppose...
I think you mean water under the election.
Let's just suppose it's like the empty fuel tank of Vince Foster's pickup. That's how gone the water is. Let's suppose that you have loosely handled this classified information and it gets Americans killed in Benghazi. Now, we can't definitely say that happened.
Again, allegedly.
We can't say they're even tied together. But what we do know is that you are mishandling very sensitive materials through your cellular device on a server that is pretty secure, it sounds like. I mean, you said it's in the half bath.
And it's heavy.
But it's in the interior half bath. We're not talking about the one like in the atrium. You just walk into your palatial mansion there and it's right there for anybody to use. You're talking like maybe the one in the basement.
In the basement.
Yeah, okay. So it's fairly secure server, obviously. Nobody's getting to that.
Probably where you keep yours.
And you've got all this classified information on it. And it just so happens in that same time frame, somehow a bunch of terrorists figure out that there's a covert remote CIA annex working, I don't know, let's just say in a Western African country. Let's, Libya. And they find that CIA annex and they learn, somehow, we're not sure, that an American ambassador is about a mile down the road at an American consulate. And let's just say, again, all of this theoretical. They break into the consulate and they kill him and one other American. And then, again, now this has anything to do with the fact that you've loosely handled classified material, but then they know exactly how to get to the off-grid secret covert CIA annex a mile or two up the road, and they go there and they kill 2 more Americans. I'm not saying those... listen, wait. I'm not saying they're connected, Mr. Hulon. But what I do want you to understand, because your mom made this clear to me in our conversation, even if that were to happen, you're fine. Did you at any point intend to break the law?
No, sir, I did not.
I can see no reason to hold you accountable for anything you do. In fact, you should run for president. Be real clear.
I think I might.
Okay. So now that we got that out of the way,
Allegedly.
let's dive deep. Here's what I really like. I'm going to read you 2 articles from the New York Times. I'm going to read you the meat and potatoes of them. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I need you to stick with me. I need you to just watch what happens. It's really interesting. This is the New York Times editorial from May 16th, 2017. Hold on tight. It's going to be a good ride. On Monday, Americans learned that President Trump shared with the Russians highly classified intelligence about the United States' fight against the Islamic State. Mr. Trump passed secrets obtained by Israel to Kremlin representatives in a White House meeting last week, blithely endangering America's relationship with a vital counterterrorism ally and its national security. Republicans called Mr. Trump's act deeply disturbing, troubling, and very serious. It is worse than that. It is further proof of the menace posed by an erratic president who, we now learn, may also have interfered with the FBI's investigation of his former national security advisor, Michael Flynn. Mr. Trump defended himself on Twitter, as usual, by asserting that sharing highly classified intelligence with a foreign adversary is something, quote, I have the absolute right to do. What's terrifying is that he's right. But what he fails to grasp is that he was elected to protect American interests, not his own. So far, Republicans in Congress repeat the mantra we heard during Mr. Trump's campaign, that he is coachable and will mature in office. Or maybe his White House will, as Senator Bob Corker put it on Monday night, quote, bring itself under control and in order. Obviously, they're in a downward spiral right now. That's not going to happen. End quote, by the way. That's not going to happen. We are seeing the real Mr. Trump. This same inattention and ignorance, vanity and foolish impulsivity, did I get that right? I think so, nearly sank his business until his lenders stepped in before he took them down with him. So, what will Republicans do as he threatens to do the same to all of us? All right, story's done. I want you to remember this line. This same inattention and ignorance, vanity and foolish impulsivity nearly sank his business. So, according to the New York Times editorial board, that's a mar on the Trump legacy. Okay, his reputation is now marred because he nearly sank his business. Nearly. Remember, nearly. Okay? All right. Another New York Times article, and we're going to dive back into these deeper. There's a lot of retorts to everything we're hearing in there, but I just want to get these 2 articles out of the way, and then we'll dissect it all together, okay? Same newspaper, by the way. New York Times, April 23rd, 2015. The headline on the website Pravda trumpeted President Vladimir Putin's latest coup. Its nationalistic fervor recalling an era when its precursor served as the official mouthpiece of the Kremlin. Russian nuclear energy conquers the world, the headline says. The article detailed how the Russian Atomic Energy Agency, Rosatom, had taken over a Canadian company with uranium mining stakes stretching from Central Asia to the American West. The deal made Rosatom one of the world's largest uranium producers and brought Mr. Putin closer to his goal of controlling much of the global uranium supply chain. At the heart of the tale are several men, leaders of the Canadian mining industry, who have been major donors to the charitable endeavors of former President Bill Clinton and his family. Members of that group built, financed, and eventually sold off to the Russians a company that would become known as Uranium One. All right? Beyond mines in Kazakhstan, there are among the most lucrative in the world. The sale gave the Russians control of 1/5 of all uranium produced in the United States. Since uranium is considered a strategic asset with implications for national security, the deal had to be approved by the State Department, then headed by Hillary Rodham Clinton. As the Russians gradually assumed control of Uranium One in 3 separate transactions between 2009 and 2013, Canadian records show a flow of cash made its way to the Clinton Foundation. Uranium One's chairman used his family foundation to make 4 donations totaling $2.35 million. Those contributions were not publicly disclosed by the Clintons, despite an agreement Mrs. Clinton had with the White House to publicly identify all donors. Other people with ties to the company made donations as well. And shortly after the Russians announced their intention to acquire a majority stake in Uranium One, Mr. Clinton received $500,000 for a speech in Moscow from a Russian investment bank with links to the Kremlin that was promoting Uranium One stock. Same newspaper exposing the secrets of politicians, and nobody seems upset that not only did Hillary mishandle classified information, but she sold 1/5 of the control of a strategic asset that can be used to kill Americans to people that this same newspaper's editorial board calls an adversary to the nation. So when Trump works with the Russians, and here's my big beef with this. Let's just say it's true about Trump, and he told the Russians, we know what ISIS is going to do because, Israel told us. At least Trump can say, I chose to declassify that information because it might save lives. Can we explore for a minute and you just tell me, and I mean this honestly, just tell me if you can think of a way that telling someone you know how ISIS plans to carry something out helps ISIS.
I got nothing.
Break it down in a simpler way. If the police come to you tomorrow and say, we know that you do 55 and the 35 on your way to work every day, and we're going to be there tomorrow and get you, how does that help you?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So you're just not going to do that thing.
Oh.
You're just going to modify your behavior.
And you're not going to do it?
Not the next day.
Wait. So the police told you they knew you're going to do that and they're going to catch you next time, and so you choose not to do it? Interesting. So my point is, it still helps Americans. Like, it still helps innocent people around the world. If Trump told Russia this is how ISIS is going to take down an airliner, and then that becomes public knowledge, that in no way does that help any bad people. It doesn't help anybody that has bad intent. It can only be used for good. Even if ISIS says we won't do it tomorrow, we'll wait and do it a week from now, well, at least now we're knowing what to look for, and we can hope that maybe Russia won't be the clowns that they normally are. Maybe they'll step up and help.
So here's a question. If this information was as classified as the media makes it out to be, then why, pray tell, have they been reporting on it since March 25th?
Good question.
Because it was made worldwide news on March 25th that any airline servicing the Middle East would have a ban on laptops in the cabin if they were traveling to the U.S. So now, okay, that's March 25th.
Okay, I didn't know that.
2 days ago now, Trump admits that he told the Russians this information.
Well, yeah, supposedly he told them 2 days ago, right? He told them, well, we learned it on Monday, according to New York. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So the point is, literally everyone in the world already knew this.
Right.
So this wasn't really a secret, right?
And they do this a lot. You're exactly right. Wasn't there something last week we covered that we talked about? If it is such sensitive information, why are you reporting it right here? Shouldn't you just
that was
not?
the EMP.
Yes, exactly. North Korea has the satellites up. Shouldn't we destroy the satellites and not tell them we know? Like, let them think that their satellites are still up there maybe? Maybe sometime hack into them when they set off the EMP and it only affects themselves.
I'm looking at BBC.com in an article from the 25th of March where they've got a map that shows all the countries that the ban has affected and details about how it's going to work. Does the American media not think that the Russians can get to BBC.com?
They don't speak English. They would try and go. They would try and go to a square, circle, question mark, because that's what their language looks like. Square with a line through it. They use the no sign a lot. Have you noticed that? Like the circle with the line through it that means no. They use that a lot in Russia.
Smoking?
Yeah, I guess because they're commies.
Sure.
It's such a interesting thing to watch the media suddenly be so obsessed with how classified information is handled. If you go back and dissect the editorial from the New York Times, it's all based on, we have learned this might have happened. Now, Trump and all the other guys are saying this didn't happen. It wasn't said that way. Putin said today, I'll release the transcripts. I don't care. I'll release them. I'll let you see. Nobody trusts Putin anyway. But isn't it an interesting thing?
Well, we're not going to be able to read them. So, like you just said.
Like I said, it's a lot of squares
he's welcome
and
to do
circles.
it.
Yeah.
I won't be able to read it, so it doesn't matter to me.
It is so funny. It is, if you're not, I'm not going to say if you're nonpartisan, but if you are objective enough in your reasoning, you can see the exact turn we've taken where the people who support Trump are now the people who supported Obama, and the mainstream media is now crowing in the same way we have been for the last 8 years. Especially the line that says, let's see, where was it? That he would mature in office. You remember that out of the New York Times editorial? They kept telling us he would mature in office. Well, that was a big concern about Obama. How do you give this job to somebody that's never, ever had this level of a job before? He had never overseen anything.
You mean a job before?
Yeah, he never had a real job. Just like, probably Jeremiah Wright and Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. Those guys have never worked actual jobs. They've just been fundraisers and faux preachers and prophets of the devil himself for as long as they could talk. So back to the line I said to hold on to, right? So the New York Times editorial board wants you to know that Mr. Trump's attitude, this brazen way of handling himself and the things around him, is almost sank his business. The same inattention, ignorance, vanity, and foolish impulsivity nearly sank his business until his lender stepped in before he took them down with him. What was the name of that foundation that recently announced it was shuttering the windows and closing the door? Oh, the Clinton Foundation. Yes. And why is it that the Clinton Foundation has failed? What was it that happened there?
I thought they were just getting old and they were just retiring.
I think it had something to do with she got caught with just mass impropriety. She was accepting money in return for favors. I think there was something about she basically sold nuclear material. No, okay.
No. What happened was they had all this money that was just theirs.
Yes.
And they were giving it all to Haiti.
Oh, which is why Haiti has that strip of casinos and nightclubs now, and its economy has really boomed.
Yep.
Is that right? Do I understand that?
It's actually the Clinton casino and brothel.
There's got to be a play on CNN in there somewhere. Like they call their casino CNN, but it's like the Clinton Casino, but it's spelled out. And anyway, it's a fantastic thing to be able to observe without a dog really in the fight. I gave up a long time ago thinking that if we just whine and moan and groan about it, eventually something will change. You can go out and vote for any politician you want. It's not going to change anything. It's just not. Nothing will change until enough people gain power, which I guess kind of contradicts my point. But until you can vote enough people into office who are willing to literally go up there and upend everything, it's not going to change. It's not going to change.
There's only so many Trey Gowdies to go around.
Yeah, and there's only so many people who are willing to say, I don't really care about the career of politics, which is what makes Trey Gowdy great. As you can tell, a guy, he really just doesn't care if he's a politician. He'd probably rather be somewhere practicing law, and so he enjoys the fact that he gets to do what he does, but he's not married to the idea of it. But so you look at people like Lindsey Graham. What the heck would Lindsey Graham do with his life if he couldn't be a politician? He has no clue. John McCain's the same way. No idea what they would do with themselves if they couldn't be politicians. Okay? And so they have to fight to convince everyone around them, well, you have to have me there. Everyone else is a monster. You have to have me there. Everyone else is a monster.
Lindsey Graham would make
a great boyfriend for someone somewhere.
A hell of a wife for somebody. Or maybe... I don't know. I'm sure you can find something.
And be like, yo, Lindsay, make me a sandwich. And he'd be like, what? He'd be like, a sandwich. Anyway, I hate that guy. All right. So anyway, tie it all together. It is just such an interesting time to watch the news and try and do it objectively and not be married to any politician or any idea that something has to work out.
Yeah, I'm not defending Trump in this. My point about the fact that news has been out in the media since
no, not
the
at
end
all.
of March.
I understand what you're doing.
He's still an idiot. However, the media are just as big or bigger idiots.
I mean, look, you got to sleep in the bed you made, man. And we voted Trump into office against the wishes of people like myself and everyone around me, you included, I think, who were just kind of not adamantly opposed to the guy, but comically relieved by his appearance. And then it was like, wait a second.
There was definitely a very morbid curiosity.
Yeah, it's like, wait. They're gonna put some steam in this guy's engine? No. I liked him because nobody was funding him. He was getting. I'm just saying everything I wish I could say. But I don't. But no politician can say that because that person wants to be the president. It's the same reason Barack Obama shouldn't have been going around calling Jesus Christ a radical or attending a church where they say "God damn America" or the KKK, America KKK or whatever it was. All those things Jeremiah Wright said, and all the money Oprah and Barack Obama gave that man to preach his hate from the pulpit, that can't be forgiven. Clinging to your guns and religion can't be forgiven. Those comments can't be forgiven. So he will never lead the nation. He will only divide. And that's what Obama did, and it's now what Trump is doing. He will never lead the nation. He will only divide. And people allow that to happen from the Trump perspective, I think from the same way, as I've said before, because it was this populist notion that we have to have this and we have to have it now. And I still think Trump was a bad idea. But again, if he's willing to get in there and do what's best for the country, then, man, I'm behind him 1,000%. I support him in all the right things he does.
My only retort to that is,
I'll always be critical.
If not him, who would have beaten Hillary? Because obviously she was cherry picked, right?
I understand.
That is proven. That's fact now.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I think there's lawsuits out against the DNC saying that they rigged it in her favor and blew Bernie Sanders' chances all to hell of the nomination. So, I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Hey, listen, I agree with your notion, and I understand it, and I don't know. I don't know that there's an answer. Could Ted Cruz
still doesn't mean I like the guy.
Yeah, could Ted Cruz have beaten her? Probably not. Could anybody else have beaten her? Probably not. But here's the thing: that's not an excuse because on the same side of that argument, on the same argument, the case could be made that maybe nobody would have beaten Hillary, but from my perspective, a Hillary presidency could have been better than a Trump presidency because the gridlock would have remained. And now you have a guy in power who's going to push through a lot of big government things that his people are supporting, whether they know it or not. They're not going to repeal health care. They're going to let Obamacare's nastiness stay in place and act like, oh, don't worry, we fixed what we could fix. We put the Band-Aid on the gunshot wound. And it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, I can agree with you on this, but I'm going to be real critical when you do this with Trump. But with Hillary, you could almost say it would have been better because the gridlock would have remained. That's all I'm saying. And again, neither way is right or wrong. And again, ultimately, it sucks that it has to be that way because it's a terrible, terrible, terrible way to have the country run. Washington and all of his contemporaries believed that a party system would be the downfall. But there are things you can get behind Trump on, and maybe.
I don't want to go. This doesn't have to be a tangent, but just the question is: will there ever be a situation, given our two-party system, where the country isn't divided like it is currently?
I mean, if you're asking me for an honest answer on that, and don't go into it, I like that you prefaced it with, "Hey, can you not talk for 20 minutes on this one?" So the question ultimately, make sure I understand correctly: will the
time's up?
If a two-party system remains, will the country ever not be divided?
Sure. Yeah.
By nature, no way. By nature, no way. Because you got two sides of the aisle, right?
I just think we're so evenly split now as a country. That's my point.
And why does anybody care what party somebody affiliates with? It's really like worrying about what kind of car the girl you're dating drives. Who cares? Who cares? Who is she as a person? Who is this person you're talking about possibly spending the rest of your life with? It doesn't matter what kind of car they drive. It doesn't matter what party you affiliate yourself with. Give me the substance. Tell me who you are. Now, I get party platforms. It's a quick identifier. Oh, you're a Democrat? You're okay with big government. You're a Republican? Oh, okay, well, you're okay with big government. oh, what do I do? Like, I don't like any of you guys. What do I do now? What do I do now? And you know, it harkens back to our conversation last week a little bit about it. Is Antifa a Democratic movement? Well, they sure as heck didn't vote for Trump, and they likely voted for Bernie, and Bernie identifies as a Democrat, and the Democratic Party accepts him well enough that he was number 2 on their roster of people to possibly be president. So the Democratic Party as a whole is quite all right with a socialist being in charge of the United States of America. They're quite all right on putting us on the path to being Venezuela. So I don't understand how you differentiate. Even Trey Gowdy is a Republican. But I don't think Trey Gowdy is the type of Republican I despise, okay? But Bernie Sanders is definitely the type of Democrat I despise. You see, does that make sense? Like, it's interesting that I have Republicans like Lindsey Graham and John McCain who I probably couldn't disagree with more. Okay? I just disagree with them on 99.999% of everything, okay? But Trey Gowdy, I'm going to agree with 99.9% of it. But they put themselves under the same umbrella, and I think that's really, really bad way to go. I think we should just go and vote for names. I think if you could get back to a system where parties weren't allowed, and I just had to go pick a name, imagine, first of all...
You'd have to do your homework.
Exactly.
Which I don't think people do in general.
Exactly. So my first point was going to be, first of all, voting would drop off drastically because you're not going to go pull a lever on a name you don't know. You're just not by nature going to do that. And so few people do their homework that nobody's going to go vote. So then only the educated are voting, which might actually be good for us for a while. I think everybody should vote, but in conjunction with that, everyone should be educated. Just like everyone should own a gun, but everyone should be educated on how to operate the gun. They should maintain that higher level of responsibility. Everyone that votes should be educated on the candidates and on the matters they're voting on. So, to me, get away from two-party system. Man, I really did turn that into a tangent, though. Haha, in your face, Hulon.
Yeah, well.
In your face.
I wonder how many people actually vote straight party ticket. And if...
Oh, I think most.
Yeah, probably. But I wonder if that's more lopsided towards the left or the right.
Did you have another Trump point that you wanted to get into? Not to do work in front of, but did you want to do that? Or can we move to Seth Rich real fast?
Go for it.
All right. Because here's...
I mean, I can only talk about Trump so much because that's all the media in general wants to do. So I kind of get sick of it.
Okay.
Frankly. So if you got something else, by all means.
The family of the Democratic National Committee staffer who was murdered on July 10th in Washington, D.C. It says reports that he was a source for WikiLeaks are not true. Rob Wheeler, retired Washington homicide detective and Fox News contributor investigating the case on behalf of the Rich family, has made the claim that Seth Rich, who was murdered, sourced thousands of emails to WikiLeaks about the DNC. All right. Wheeler made his comments on the possible Rich WikiLeaks connection in a story first reported Monday night by Fox 5 DC. An appearance on Fox News' Hannity, Wheeler says a federal investigator that was involved on the inside of the case saw Rich's computer in the case file. Wheeler told Hannity the investigator came across very credible. When you look at that, he says, with the totality of everything else I found in this case, it's consistent for a person with my experience to begin to think, well, perhaps there was some email communication between Seth and WikiLeaks. But a spokesman for Seth's family says he was not, said Wheeler was not authorized to speak for the family and called assertions Seth Rich sent emails to WikiLeaks, quote, unsubstantiated. So what I've read, and I'm not seeing in this specific article I saved, unfortunately, was we're looking at like tens of thousands of emails. Am I incorrect on that?
It was over 44,000.
Over 44,000 possible emails connecting him to leaking inside information about the DNC to WikiLeaks. If you're not familiar, remember that what happened was it was found out that the DNC worked in conjunction with Donna Brazile from CNN to give Hillary the questions before the debates so she could study up and look better than she actually is. And then B, they found out that it was coordinated inside of the DNC to usurp Bernie Sanders in the primaries. So those things we know are true 100%. Donna Brazile has admitted to it. Bernie Sanders was all PO'd about it, but put his support behind Hillary.
And then bought another beach house.
and bought his third house on the beach. And now you've got Seth Rich tied to possibly having leaked all of that information to WikiLeaks, and he's suddenly shot twice in the back. Listen, this is
not robbed.
Not robbed. All of his stuff was intact. Cold, hard fact that cannot be argued by anybody, and it does not pertain to the Seth Rich story. Just listen to me here and know that this is true. Ready? 93% of people murdered knew the person that kills them. 93%. Now, does that mean that Seth Rich was murdered by somebody he knew? No. But it does mean there's a high likelihood that he was killed because of something. Because of something. So what's the something? What's the something? Look, Vince Foster shot himself twice in the head somehow.
In the back of the head.
In the back of the head.
Which is pretty... I mean, I didn't know he was a gymnast. It was pretty impressive.
Used his foot and then his hand? Who knows? Maybe the first one didn't work, so he was squeezed again. But this is a guy who had a lot of dirt on the Clintons, man. A lot of dirt on the Clintons. And they find him mysteriously dead, and now a guy who leaked a lot of information and looked really, really bad for the Clintons winds up dead. Come on. This isn't an Andrew Breitbart thing where the family comes out and says, oh, he had a heart condition. All the conspiracies aren't true. That's okay, fine. Even his staff said, no, we all knew. It just wasn't public knowledge, but Andrew did have a heart condition, and then they didn't expect him to live as long as he did. Okay, fine. Makes sense. I'm fine with it.
That guy's blood pressure.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. I feel the same about myself. Not to put myself on par with Breitbart, but sometimes turning the news off is a good thing, is all I'm saying there. This is a guy shot twice in the back and murdered in cold blood right outside of his own home in Washington, D.C. Something's fishy. Something's real fishy. So 44,000 or more emails.
Yeah, but let's just keep blaming Russia, why don't we?
I would say let's just talk about that.
All together? Just drop the whole Seth thing?
Yeah. You know, it's already on Snopes, by the way.
Well, what are they saying?
Did DNC staffer Seth Rich send thousands of emails to WikiLeaks before he was murdered? A man claiming to be a PI is making uncorroborated claims about the deceased staffer. They're just saying unproven. Unproven. That's fair enough. Because it is. It's unproven. So we'll see.
44,053 emails.
Good grief.
Including 17,761 attachments.
Listen, I'll say this one more time, and you'll hear me say it a lot more. There is no such thing in life as a coincidence. No such thing in life as a coincidence. Always remember, we were attacked on September 11th, 2001, and the last crusade of the Muslim army was stopped at the gates of Vienna on September 11th, 1683. There are no coincidences. They do things on purpose. All right. Hey, you might remember there was a case of a rape of a 14-year-old girl in Rockville, Maryland. She was reportedly raped by 2 illegal aliens. And this past week, the prosecutors dropped the charges. And then the story disappeared right after everybody said, hey, yeah, they're dropping charges. Ha, 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 your narrative's wrong. So, the fact that we're dropping rape cases because of the reason they dropped it should terrify all of us, because this is the future we will live in. And before you go, all right, this guy's crazy, just hear me out. Give me 2 minutes to lay this out for you, okay? This is from Ann Coulter. Just give it a second. The same media that ignored the alleged rape of a 14-year-old girl by 2 illegal immigrants in Rockville, Maryland, spent last week crowing about the prosecutor's refusal to bring charges. It turns out that illegal aliens gang raping a 14-year-old girl in a bathroom stall is not statutory rape because the girl had previously sent one of her assailants prurient text messages. According to the police report, she had run into her friend, 17-year-old Jose Montano, and his friend, 18-year-old Henry Sanchez Milian, in the hallway at school. The 17 and 18-year-olds, by the way, were both in 9th grade. Both in 9th grade. She knew one, but not the other. Montano hugged her, slapped her on the butt, and asked her to have sex with both of them. She said no. Montano and Sanchez Milian then forced her into a boy's bathroom where she grabbed the bathroom sink to stop them from dragging her into a stall, repeatedly saying no. In the stall, they took turns holding her down and then penetrated her orally, vaginally, and anally. As she was screaming, they yelled at one another in Spanish. Although there was no hard evidence, police investigators did find blood and semen in the bathroom stall. State Prosecutor McCarthy dropped the rape charges against both suspects on the grounds that the girl had previously sent nude photos of herself to Montano. This, the prosecutor interpreted as consent to have multi-orifice sex in a bathroom stall with him, as well as any of his friends. However risque her texts were, can't a girl change her mind? Evidently, she thought it was rape when she emerged from the bathroom, inasmuch as she promptly notified authorities. All right. So that's disturbing and sickening. They dropped the charges, basically saying she sent pictures and we can't prove it either way, so we're just not going to charge them, which is unreal to me, but okay. By the way, those men, 18 and 17-year-old respectively, will get what's coming to them. It will happen. It's just the way the world works. This from Breitbart. A survivor of a Muslim grooming gang in the UK says she reported being raped when she was 13. But authorities did nothing and told her not to mention the ethnicity of the attackers. The rape survivor, Emma, told Katie Hopkins on LBC Radio on Sunday, quote, I actually reported my rape 14 years ago. I went to the authorities. My parents did. Sat and gave video interviews with the police. But as soon as I said the names, I was made to feel as though I was racist and I was the one who had the problem. I was specifically told not to comment on the ethnicity of the perpetrators numerous times by police and social workers. She said, I knew I wasn't racist, but I felt that was used as a way to silence me. Groomed from 12, Emma told LBC listeners she was a virgin when she was raped at age 13, detailing that the rapes happened regularly. She described one occasion where she was locked in a property and sexually assaulted by multiple men. The Muslim grooming gang then began blackmailing the young teen and threatened to gang rape her mother if she told her parents. The rapes continued after she reported it to the police, as authorities told her it was, quote, her word against his. The police had also lost the clothes she had been raped in, leaving her with no evidence for a prosecution. Let down by authorities, she found herself being further abused by other rape gangs. She reported rape again at the age of 14, but police said there was not enough evidence. Eventually, her parents moved her out of the country. Nobody wanted to stop it, Emma said, and that was the only way they could. Ms. Hopkins told Emma that other parents of victims of Muslim grooming gangs had removed their daughters abroad as well, saying moving girls to different parts of the country was ineffective, as the rape gangs are networked between cities. Think about that. Let it sink in. The grooming gangs, Ms. Hopkins told Emma, other parents of victims of Muslim grooming gangs had moved their daughters out of the country because it's ineffective to stay inside because the rape gangs are networked between cities. The child sex abuse scandal is the biggest child protection scandal in Britain's history, where, since the late 1980s, police and social services failed to protect girls from predatory grooming gangs made of Muslim men for fear of being labeled racist, leading to institutional cover-ups. Other Muslim grooming networks have been exposed since the first convictions in 2010. Last week, Breitbart London reported the BBC drama Three Girls, which tells the story of three children targeted by a gang of Pakistani and Afghani origin Muslims, makes no mention of Islam in the trailer or in any press releases. So why do those connect? Well, it seems pretty obvious, right? So here we are in the States, and we have this problem with illegal immigrants, and we have all these Syrian refugees coming. God knows who they really are. And now we're dropping rape charges against them. They can be 18, 17 years old, and quote-unquote freshmen in high school, and they can do what they want to our girls in the bathroom. And if our girls made the mistake of sending them a dirty picture at some point, charges will be dropped. And in the UK, the exact same thing is happening, and people are having to move out of the country to avoid this. Where do you go if you can't come to the United States? Where do you go? Canada's not going to protect you. It's illegal. It's illegal to badmouth Islam in Canada. It is illegal. Look up Ezra Levant, watch his case, watch the videos that exist online. It is a prosecutable offense to offend Islam in the country of Canada. Talk to Mark Stein, who's been sued by the government of Canada. Talk to Ann Coulter, who's not allowed into the country if she's going to give a speech against Islam. Canada is lost forever at this point. You're not going to Mexico because you'll die with the drug cartels who were sold guns by the Obama administration, knowingly, by the way.
Michael Savage can't get into the UK.
Really? I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, he's been
Same
banned.
reason?
Yeah, he's been banned from the UK for a long time now, and been fighting it, but to no avail.
You know what? I'd have to wear that as a badge of honor, though. I'd get myself a T-shirt made that said "Banned in the UK." I'd be so happy, because who wants to go there? Let's divert for a quick second. If you're vacationing in Europe, why are you vacationing in Europe? To see old stuff? That's really all it has to offer. Well, it's been here a lot longer. Yes, it has. You know why? Because we were the first to make it free. We were the first to make it free. Why don't you go visit the first free place in the world? Go to Roanoke. Go look around and see what it's like to be somewhere that introduced the concept of free people to the rest of the world. I don't know anything about it. You can go to so many beautiful places in the United States, and people choose to leave, go elsewhere, and spend their money with governments who, by the way, if you're conservative at all, probably hate who you are. You certainly can't go to France anymore.
I was just about to say, France is pretty much off the books.
You could probably excuse the UK. I could get the UK, but you can't go to France anymore. Yeah, you could probably do Italy. Italy's a good ally of ours. There's just not a lot of places left to go. But furthermore, if you are raising a family anywhere else in the world and you can't flee to the United States anymore, where is left to go? And I got to tell you, we're getting a little full here. We're getting a little full because we're taking in all the Syrians. God knows who they are. Taking in all Southern Americans who want to sneak in through the Mexican border.
Oh, I figured one out. I know where you could go.
Oh, tell me.
Japan.
I don't know that that's very easy. I think it's rather hard. I'll tell you some place. You know what? Let's name all the African places you can't go. All these people who hyphenate as if they're African American, and you want to say, which African country is it? Okay? Is it Egypt, where it's basically illegal to be a Christian? Is it Zimbabwe, where it's certainly illegal to be white, by the way? Okay? Mugabe hates white people. It's now illegal to be white. Is it the Sudan? Is it Rwanda, where they'll kill you if your nose is too wide or your lips are too big? Racist, I know, but not my rules. It's the Africans' rules there. Is it South America, where apartheid was a thing? There is no good place in Africa that I can think of off the top of my head, by the way. There's just a bunch of backwards, horrible places to be, and then people want to go, yeah, I was African first. I would go ahead and forget about that. Let's go ahead and set that part to the side and just be American together. That's a much better way to be. So if we start to turn the blind eye to the rape, speaking of Africa, by the way, and the mutilation of young girls in our society, where's left? There's nowhere left. It is, to be cliche about it, it's a prime example of how PC is literally killing us.
You ever heard the speech Dinesh D'Souza gave about how anyone can come here and then become an American, but that doesn't really work in reverse? So anyone else, like, so for instance, you and I couldn't move to India, and that's the example he used, and become Indian.
Excellent point.
I thought it was a pretty good little speech.
Excellent point. It doesn't happen. I mean, you're never accepted.
No, it doesn't happen anywhere.
Never
except
accepted.
Here.
Yeah. We're the only culture that recognizes itself being a conglomerate of people. I think that's his point, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is just an amazing thing to think about. Yeah, excellent. I love Dinesh, man. Super smart. That's an amazing point. Good for him. Makes me sad. Makes me mad as well because, I have a little daughter, and I just imagine something like that happening. And here's the thing. I mean, we talk big game and all that, but I don't think people would live long much after that if that were my kid. Like, I just don't. Sorry, it's just not okay, well, their word against hers, guess who I'm going to believe, and guess what's going to happen? They're not going to breathe much longer. I'm going to be okay with that. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable that we're forcing our kids to be victims so we don't come across as racist or politically incorrect. And then we act like, well, we should just open the borders and let all these people in that want to come in. They're not criminals. They just came here illegally. What? Like facepalm times 1,000. All right, here's a fun gun news story. We'll get away from all the dread there. Sorry, but it is important. And we have debated this, even talking about it. So please just understand. You can email Chris at feltrecoilshow.com or Patrick at feltrecoilshow.com. We'd be real interested to hear your take on what's happened in Tennessee. This is from the 10th Amendment Center, an article published a week ago today. It says that Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam has signed a bill into law decriminalizing the manufacture and possession of firearm suppressors in the state. The new law not only removes a layer of state regulation, it will help foster an environment hostile to federal gun control in Tennessee. Senator Steve Sutherland introduced Senate Bill 921 earlier this year, titled the Tennessee Hearing Protection Act. The new law repeals current Tennessee statutes prohibiting the possession, manufacture, transport, repair, or sale of firearm silencers, more appropriately referred to as suppressors. These devices simply muffle the sound of a gun. They do not literally silence firearms. Nevertheless, the federal government heavily regulates silencers under the NFA. Excuse me, that's National Firearms Act. The feds charge a $200 tax on the purchase of the devices. Buying one also requires months-long waits after filing extensive paperwork with the ATF. The House passed SB 921 by a 74-18 vote. The Senate approved the measure, and it's been signed into law, and it'll go into effect in July. The repeal of the state suppressor restrictions will not alter federal law, but it does remove a layer of law hindering access to the harmless devices. Widespread easing of suppressor regulations in states subtly undermines federal efforts to unconstitutionally regulate firearms. As we've seen with marijuana and industrial hemp, a federal regulation becomes ineffective when states ignore it, or when the state decriminalizes and people start ignoring the federal prohibition without any further state permission to do so. Either way, the federal government lacks the enforcement power necessary to maintain its ban in such a climate, and people will increasingly take on the risk of federal sanctions if they know the state will not interfere. This increases when the state actively encourages the, quote, market. Less restrictive state gun laws, such as SB 921, can have a similar impact on federal gun laws. It will make it that much more difficult for the feds to enforce federal gun control should the people defy it, and increase the likelihood that states with few limits will simply refuse to cooperate. All right, so let me just recap. The way I read all of this, and we looked at the legislation a little bit, is that Tennessee used to say it is a Class E felony for you to be in possession of these things without complying with the ATF regulations. And Tennessee is now saying we will no longer recognize it as a felony offense if you're caught without ATF paperwork.
Right, so that was going to be my question. So what regulations are they talking about? So they're talking about needing to be able to present documentation that those items have been procured legally through the NFA process, right?
Yes. So the way it reads is that you would have to have a all your paperwork with you, right? Normally. And now Tennessee is saying they don't care if you do or don't. They're not going to enforce, if I understand this correctly, they're not going to enforce the federal law. And here, I'll read it to you. So it goes like this. The Tennessee Code prohibits any person, and this is from the legislation, okay, from capitol.tn.gov. Tennessee Code prohibits any person from intentionally or knowingly possessing, manufacturing, transporting, repairing, or selling a firearm silencer. Illegally possessing, manufacturing, transporting, repairing, or selling a firearm silencer is a Class E felony. Now, it is a defense to that code that the person acquiring or possessing a firearm silencer is in compliance with the NFA. To this end, most owners of firearm silencers carry the necessary paperwork showing compliance with the NFA. So here's what it's saying. Tennessee law prohibits, prior to this legislation, prohibited the ownership of silencers. But since it was allowed under federal law, if you followed the federal law, you could own it. and you had to have your paperwork in order and blah, blah, blah. And if you didn't, it was a Class E felony. Now, the legislation repeals the offense of intentionally or knowingly possessing, manufacturing, transporting, repairing, or selling a firearm silencer. A person wishing to own or possess a firearm silencer would still need to comply with the NFA. However, a person wishing to possess a silencer in Tennessee would not commit an offense by failing to show compliance with the NFA.
All right, so my question is, whose job is it to enforce federal law?
Right, the ATF.
Well, it's the federal government as a whole. So in this instance, yes, the ATF. So my understanding has always been that they're the only people who could enforce any law regarding your NFA items. And maybe I'm not right. Maybe that's just.
But it seems to me, though, here's the deal. Seems to me that if I'm in my car and I get pulled over on the highway, South Carolina Highway Patrol, and he says, "Hey, what's in that bag?" And I go, 9 suppressors. He says, "Excuse me?" I say, 9 suppressors. He goes, "Oh, that's a lot of Class 3
First
stuff."
thing he's going to go, you mean silencers?
Right, yeah. And I go, "Yeah, sure. You can call him that, Hiram." And then we'll move on. But Hiram Maxim invented the silencer, and that's what he called it. Just FYI. Okay. He called it a silencer. You can call it whatever you want. I don't care. So if that cop smelled something suspicious, and then I probably get caught on another infraction, and those are in there, South Carolina is probably going to let the ATF know, "Hey, man, we found this dude with 9 suppressors, and we don't think they're legit." The ATF shows up, and they prosecute me.
Right.
What Tennessee seems to be saying here is, we're not going to care. You got 9 suppressors. It's not, to us, it's not an offense. It's not an offense. You need to be in compliance, but it's not an offense to us. It's a sanctuary state. Just like California won't kick the illegals back to ICE, now Tennessee won't kick the suppressors to the ATF. That's the way I read it. Now, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in court, and it would be really interesting. And this might be a good reason to hunt somebody down that's a Tennessee lawyer and see if they'll come on with us and explain this. We can try and get that done next week. But to me, it reads, the proposed legislation repeals the offense of intentionally or knowingly possessing, manufacturing, by the way, transporting, repairing, or selling a silencer. So if I manufacture a silencer and then I possess it, or a friend possesses the one I manufactured, seems to me there's no longer an offense there as long as we comply with NFA. But if we're not complying, I don't know that Tennessee's going to come after us.
I think this is a really weird law. I just don't see the point.
Yeah, okay. I was about to ask if you thought it was just unnecessary.
I think it's extremely unnecessary.
We're going to have to get this explained heavily, but it seems to me they're just telling you.
I think it's just weird wording.
If you're in Tennessee and you have a suppressor, like, all right, well, we're in South Carolina. We each have a suppressor at least, right? At least one in your house.
Allegedly.
Well, listen, the feds know.
Oh,
man.
I thought we were still doing the Hillary thing.
Oh, yeah. No.
I got one.
We're honest people. And so if again, just beating the dead horse here, but if South Carolina law enforcement found me with those suppressors and I didn't have proper paperwork, they would notify the ATF. Or if there wasn't a serial number on it, they would notify the ATF. Right.
It was explained to me that, yes, that's what they would do because they have no jurisdiction over those items.
So,
and here's the reason why I say that.
But wait, real quick. But the big point there is Tennessee sounds like they won't.
Right. But so in South Carolina, will they or will they not? I don't know. So they're not agents of the ATF. So it's kind of a strange thing. Maybe they feel like they have a duty to inform them. Okay. And maybe that's what Tennessee's saying is no longer necessary. That's the only thing I can really gather from it, but it's I just still don't get the point. So let's just say you get pulled over and you have that item in your car and South Carolina Highway Patrol says, "Hey, I don't really know what that's about. So I'm going to do some research here." My understanding is that they can't actually ask you for the paperwork for it because it's not in their jurisdiction. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we need to talk to a lawyer about that.
Maybe.
But what I have heard, I was going to say do know, but what I have heard is that what they could do is actually call the ATF to inquire about it, and they can actually be deputized over the phone. And then you are you are then forced to present the paperwork. Here's the flip side of that. If you were to poll probably, I would say 9 out of 10 state or local law enforcement officers, and I'm not taking anything away from them by saying this. If you were to poll 9 out of 10 of them, I bet they would say they have no idea what that paperwork is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you could show them a copy of a trust, you could show them a Form 4 or a Form 1, and they would probably go cross-eyed looking at it because they probably have never seen one.
Mm-hmm. It's still confusing for guys that do it every day. You have to have cheat sheets handy. Now. Yeah. They just make it worse and worse. And, there's another thing to be said about this is a real thing. Remember that laws are written, and especially local ordinances are written in a way that allow law enforcement to use discretion. So it's never really like this must happen or this will happen or if you do this, this will definitely happen. That's why laws are written like you could be fined up to or, you may be subject to this. It's so that if an officer stops you because your windshield is busted out and he says, hey, that's illegal. And you go, yeah, wait, listen, I'm driving right there to the body shop to get it fixed. He cannot give you a ticket. And I'm thinking of that example because there actually is a news story out there about a guy who did that. Like he was pulling into the body shop's parking lot and the cop threw his lights on, pulled him over and wrote him a ticket. And the guy was like, no, I'm right here to get it fixed. And the cop goes, doesn't matter. Can't drive it. Should have had it hauled. Anyway, it's so the officers can use their discretion and say, oh, you are here. You're going to get fixed. Oh, you have a 3:30 appointment. Okay, man, no problem. And they walk away and the officer hasn't committed a crime there. He's not breaking the law by not punishing you. He's allowed to use his discretion. So that being said, maybe that's what Tennessee's doing. I said we'll reach out to what's his name here, Senator Steve Sutherland. We'll reach out to him. I want to get him on next week and ask for a more thorough explanation because he introduced the legislation. It'd be interesting to see if he'd join us by phone and explain exactly why this was necessary. Because I think you and I are getting different interpretations of it through reading it, but we'll see. All right, listen, if you have an idea for a topic or a guest for the program, we'd love to hear about it. You can view or find us on the web at feltrecoilshow.com. All of our contact information is there. We appreciate you finding us on social media, especially on the YouTube and Facebook. We're probably most active on those. So reach out to us and let us know. We'll see you next week for Felt Recoil Podcast number 27. We're over that 6-month hump. But I do expect flowers.
The honeymoon phase is officially over.
I mean, I know I hate you, so. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Feelings mutual.
Yeah, okay. Get off my mic.